What's going on, YouTube? It is Will here, back again, once again, for yet another episode of the Gridiron Talk Podcast. Week 13, I had to double check that. Week 13 here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We haven't done back-to-back weeks in a while, whether it was a blizzard or, whatever the case may be. But, we're here this week. There's no storms in Buffalo. It is actually really windy out, so go figure, like, there is a storm, but I'm luckily at my house, so we're chilling. So yeah, but Shane, how have you been, man, in the last week?
Very busy, my guy. Very busy. Watching lots of college football, but life's been very busy for good old Shane. How about you, my guy?
Doing good. I've been watching both types of football. I'm watching American football and obviously like soccer. The World Cup was on. Unfortunately, the United States lost, but it's okay because we don't really care about soccer here. But it's definitely cool to watch the World Cup every 4 years. The atmosphere is really cool of the World Cup. I know you don't really like soccer, Shane, but the atmosphere is definitely really cool. Just watching all of these people from all around the world just come together and watch their teams play a game of soccer. So it's definitely interesting to see. But a lot of sports going on. Like I said, the World Cup, as you said, college football, the NFL, hockey, college basketball, NBA basketball, like all of the sports are just kind of happening besides baseball. So it's a good time to be a fan of sports, no matter
Did
what
you
sport
see?
you like.
Speaking of baseball, real quick, you see Degrom signed a 5-year, like $130 million contract with the Rangers.
I saw that. So now the Rangers will be mediocre instead of ass. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see that.
No, literally.
No, but yeah, but even for baseball, like you said, like baseball has the free agency and a bunch of trades in baseball. So really, no sports quiet right now. But let's continue. Let's just start talking about the NFL as we do on here, the football, American football. So as always, we're going to go over the Thursday night post game. This week it was the Bills and the Patriots. The Bills had their third Thursday night game of the row. They had week one, they had Thanksgiving, and now this week, the Bills did beat the Patriots 24-10. A very I don't want to say dominant, but a very comfortable win for the Bills. Josh Allen, 22 for 33. That's 67%. 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. So not a crazy game by Josh Allen, but he didn't throw an interception. And the good thing is that Josh Allen looks very good. Like his UCL, his elbow, did not seem to be bothering him, which it seemed like he was playing hurt the last couple of weeks. So that's good for the Bills, and we'll get into that later. James Cook? I apologize, not Jared Cook. James Cook, Shane's boy from Georgia, was the Bills' leading rusher with 14 carries and 64 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Now this is easily James Cook's best game of the year. So let's see if the Bills start to use him more and more and kind of give Singletary the back burner. But we'll see. Stephon Diggs, like always, having a good game for the Bills. 7 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So Shane, what would you like to say about the Bills and the? Let's talk about James Cook because I know you're a Georgia fan. He did go to Georgia. Do you think Do you think that James Cook could help establish this Bills team to establish a run game, or do you think Devin Singletary is still the guy?
I mean, it can go either way. Watching Cook at Georgia, he's not your typical regular running back. He's more like a receiving type. And honestly, like you've heard me say this before, and like I'm pretty sure you called me crazy, but I think he's going to be just as good as his brother in the NFL. Just in like the different ways they use him. Like he kind of reminds me of like Darryl Sproles. He's more of an elusive than speed. He's very good in the open field, and I think that's what's going to make him so dangerous. And I feel like they should use him in this Bills offense as that. Do a lot more passes like behind the line of scrimmage to Cook, just because the explosiveness that he has, and his juke out ability is also insane. And he's got a good vision as a running back as well, obviously. So I think the way that they use him is going to be way better than how they use Singletary, just because of his abilities, like as a rookie, like are so much more valuable than Singletary, like overall. So it'll be interesting to see how they use Cook in the future, and especially when playoffs come around.
Right, and I agree with you. There's one thing that's been haunting the Bills, and that's a run game. They don't. You don't even need a running back like Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb nowadays, but you do need a running back that is at least above average. So hopefully James Cook breaks the mold for the Bills to having a solid running game. They haven't really had one since LaShawn McCoy left. So anyway, let's go to the Patriots side. Mac Jones, 61% of his 61% completion. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tongue twister. 195 yards, 1 touchdown. a very pedestrian game like Mac Jones. That's what you expect of him. Nothing too crazy. Ramondre Stevenson, the lead back, 10 carries, 54 yards, 5.6 a carry, or 5.4 a carry. I apologize. And then the crazy thing right here, the Patriots' leading receiver, Shane, was not Devontae Parker, was not Jacoby Myers, was not Nelson Aguilar. It was their cornerback, Marcus Jones, who had 2 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. So we'll get into that with the Patriots offense, and we talk about that. But, without Von Miller for the first time this season, he has a sprained MCL, I believe. Do not quote me on that. But he is on the IR, so he'll miss the next 4 games. A lot of questions, Shane, about how the Bills could adjust without their Hall of Fame pass rusher. And they were just fine. They only got 1 sack on Mac Jones. However, they did have a 40% pressure rate on his dropbacks, which was number 1, like the most he's been pressured his whole career, which is awesome. It seems like the Bills are doing just fine without Von Miller. Obviously, this, in my opinion, was a must-win for the Bills, even though they were 8-3 going into it. They did not have a divisional win, but this was their first divisional win, and also on the road makes it even better. Must-win for the Bills. Mac Jones is visibly upset with his play calling in this game, Shane. I don't know if you saw that. He said, pass the fucking ball. The one game fucking sucks. Part of my language, but that's what he said. He was very pissed off. He was very mad at the play calling. So, do you think the Patriots should change their play calling for the last 5 games to make it so Mac Jones is more aggressive, or do you still think they go with a very pedestrian approach?
I mean, I don't like. I'm pretty sure you know this already. I don't like the way Bill Belichick runs his offense. At least ever since Brady's left.
He's too conservative.
I feel like Bill Belichick was able to be conservative just because be able to run his offense just because he had Brady as a quarterback for so many years. So I think he needs to realize that he needs to be more aggressive. But they don't have the talent to be able to be that aggressive. You know what I mean? At least on the offense.
The Patriots don't have really bad receivers. They just have a bunch of mediocre receivers. They have a bunch of number 2s. They don't have a very elite wide receiver.
Yeah, their wide receiver core is a bunch of number 2s. And the reason like you're like, oh well, they've always had number 2s, but you got to think like the reason why they had a lot of number 2s their whole for the past 20 years is because one, they had possibly the best tight end in like ever with Rob Gronkowski there, and then obviously Tom Brady there as well. So he can make a practice squad player look like a number 1 wide receiver. So I think Bill Belichick needs to go back to the drawing board, and he needs to realize that establishing the run game, which is obviously something you need to do in the NFL, isn't good. Or isn't exactly what they need to bring out of the gate, because they don't have. Not only do they not have the wide receivers to be aggressive, they don't have the running backs to be a run dominant team. Like they don't have like you said earlier, they don't have like a Nick Chubb, a Saquon Barkley, a Derrick Henry. So they need to.
Ramondre Stevenson may be that, but we don't know. He's only in his 2nd year.
Exactly.
It's way too early to tell.
It's too early to tell, and you can't like. They're in this, like, whether they realize it or not, they're in this division. Like, this division is really close, and it's getting really late in the season, and every game is starting to count, especially when it comes to the Jets, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins, because they're all so close record-wise. And like you said, the Bills, this is their first division win, and that could become a big factor at the end of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see what Bill Belichick does.
Right. Continuing, the Bills looked very good this game. I don't want to say very good. They looked good. They didn't really have to blow them out. They didn't have to have a shootout. They looked good. Josh Allen, as I said, you could kind of figure that he was playing hurt. Whether he looked it or not, you could just kind of tell, considering that a UCL injury is nothing to mess around with. That's what baseball pitchers get if they need Tommy John surgery. I'm sure you know that. But he didn't really seem fully healthy, but now he does. So that's a great sign for the Bills. And lastly, kind of going off what you said, they have a bunch of number 2s. Considering the Patriots' lead receiver was a cornerback, they need to change something on offense. Obviously they can't trade for anyone. I don't really think they should sign anybody. But the Patriots have always been a very pedestrian team in free agency, as you know, Shane. Brady was really always a team first type of guy, takes the small contracts, all that jazz. But I think maybe they should start investing into a free agent wide receiver soon. I can't really think of any who are going to be a free agent soon off the top of my head. I'm not really too sure. but maybe it's something to consider, because Jacoby Myers, like we said, he's all right, but he's a number two. Devontae Parker, he's all right, but he's not. He's a number two. Even a guy like Michael Gallup potentially could work on the Patriots. Someone that's just slightly better than what they have to make them go over the limit. I think that's all the Patriots really need is just a more talent at receiver. But do you have anything else you want to add, Shane, before you continue on to your games?
No. Jarvis Land. I will say this. Jarvis Landry. I'm pretty sure he'll be a wide receiver in free agency, and then Sterling Shepard as well. So those are.
I know for a fact Sterling Shepard. He's from the Giants, and he's always been a very solid receiver. He's just very injury prone. But if the Patriots want to take a chance on their guy like that, that's something they could do, or maybe draft a receiver. I know Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State's a very good receiver. Quentin Johnson for TCU is a very good receiver. Maybe consider drafting a receiver. But I really feel like that, maybe Mac Jones next year could be the only thing holding them back. But if they get a really good wide receiver, this offense seems very good on paper.
Yeah, no, I agree. But we'll see because I've been seeing a lot of news outlets about Tom Brady possibly returning, and then maybe Mac Jones is involved in an off-season trade with Tampa Bay. So not making any accusations, but I've seen a lot of that. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting because I personally don't think Mac Jones will be on the Patriots in when 2025 comes around. I don't think he'll be the QB of the Patriots. Just because I'm getting this vibe like they're starting to lose faith in Jones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, and patience.
Yeah, definitely the patience part because Belichick never really had to he had Bledsoe, and then when he went down, he had Brady. So he never really had to wait for a quarterback to adjust. But no, but we're gonna move on to our next game. First game we're gonna discuss here is the Steelers, who are 4-7, versus the Falcons, who are 5-7. In a lackluster division, the Falcons need to start taking advantage of some games they need to start winning in order to stay in the hunt for the top seed in their own division. They're doing a lot better than a lot of people really expected them to. They have a good rushing attack, which is 4th overall, and then 14th in their offense is 14th in scoring overall. But against this Steelers defense, their big thing is they're really good against the rush. They're 6th against teams running the ball against them, but they're not very good against the pass. So the Steelers have played a lot of ugly games lately. So against this Falcons offense, Will, my question for you here is we'll get more in depth as we talk about it more. Do you think the Steelers need to clean it up more defensively so they can start winning these games?
No, see, that's a good question. The Steelers, they're in a very interesting spot. They got a rookie quarterback. They got a great head coach. Their defense going into this season was the Steelers' strong suit, as we know. T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward are two of the best on the line in the NFL, and they got just a bunch of solid pieces around them. Minkah Fitzpatrick, he may not be a top 3 safety. Arguably, I think he's a very polarizing player. You either love him or think he's overrated. I think he's pretty solid, But the defense needs to tighten up for the Steelers because that is their strong suit. Obviously, you don't watch a Pittsburgh Steelers game expecting a shootout. You expect a very gritty 20-10 victory, 20-13 victory, something like that. And last week, I know they were going against the Colts, and their team is very up and down, but they played good last week.
They did. They could have lost that game very easily on multiple different ways. But you are right. They did play. They did play. I don't think they played great. I think they played okay. I saw the highlights of it. They played a lot of questionable decisions, but I definitely think they got lucky.
No, and to me, it was almost kind of like a bend but don't break approach.
Yeah.
It was definitely like that. I know they had an interception on Matt Ryan, but one good thing that came out of that Steelers game was Kenny Pickett. Definitely, in my opinion, had one of his best games as a Steeler. Did not throw an interception. I believe he threw 1 touchdown. I think they ran it in twice with Najee in the backup. But still, my point is Kenny Pickett definitely had his best game. Didn't have a touchdown, but didn't have an interception. Played a very clean game. George Pickens had a very solid game. Deontay Johnson had a solid game. So that's what you need from the Steelers. Like Kenny Pickett was a game manager and they won. You don't need him like acting like Mahomes or Josh Allen. That's all you need. And the Falcons on the other side, Shane, like you said, they have a very good rushing offense. Marcus Mariota is a dual threat quarterback. He's been like that for 8+ years now. And let's see how this offense adjusts without having Kyle Pitts. I know Kyle Pitts is having a very quiet year, but there is no need to. There's no what's the word I'm looking for?
Excuse.
No excuse. There's no doubt that he has so much talent as a tight end. His highest drafted tight end ever. Most potential out of a tight end ever. So their offense is definitely going to look a lot different without having Kyle Pitts because he definitely was their best receiving threat. So let's see if Drake London steps up, the first-round pick from USC.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be interesting. I know we really didn't talk too in depth on this game, just because there's not really any like big things. The one thing I did want to discuss is George Pickens. He's been playing like a dog. He went to Georgia, literal dog. That's another key part. That's someone they can definitely build around on that offensive side. Because like you said, their defense is already set put. They just need to execute more. And then offensively, I feel like they should just build around Pickett, Najee, and George Pickens because honestly, like you get really good linemen, you get a couple good wide receivers. Kenny Pickett, he gets more experience. Najee Harris, he gets a little bit better. That offense could be very dangerous within the next couple of years. And we'll see how they can turn the Steelers' whole franchise around. And I believe they need to win 6. They need to win. I think they need to win out. The Steelers do. So Mike Tomlin, who he has not had a losing record as the Steelers head coach ever since he started coaching in 2003. 2004.
2000, right after they won the Super Bowl with Jerome Bettis. So
yeah,
Big Ben's because I remember their coach is Bill Cowher, who's now an analyst.
Yeah.
So it was right after he won the Super Bowl, he retired. So 2006, 2007, something like that. He's been the head coach.
I can't remember, but that's a long time. That's like 15, 16.
He's the second longest tenured coach, only behind Belichick.
Yeah, and he hasn't had a losing season, so that's the crazy part.
Look, we all know the Steelers are going to lose one more game. They're going to be 4-8, and then they're going to get a tie, and then they're going to win. So they're going to be 8-1, and they're going to be fine. Okay, that's what's going to happen.
But who do you have winning this game? Well,
for me, if you guys listen, I'm always the Steelers shitter. I'm not a big fan. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not a big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think this is a very winnable game. Do I think they're going to win this game? Yes. Do I think they're going to win ugly? Yes. I think the Steelers are going to win this game 17-16. I don't think the Steelers, like I said, they're not a team that blows people out. They win very ugly. I think all of their wins this year, do not quote me on this, have been by one possession. So that's how the Steelers play. They play very close games. But I think it's going to be 17-16 Steelers. What about you?
No, I agree. I think it's going to be closer. I think it's going to be a 13-10 game. Steelers going to win it. I've always believed defense wins, like championships, games, all that. Your defense is probably one of the most important parts about your team. And I feel like they're going to step up this week. I think TJ Watt's going to have a great game. And I think like you said, I think it's going to be ugly. Like especially offensively wise, because they're not completely built there yet. But I do believe the Steelers will win 13-10.
So let's get to another game, which is arguably the best game of the week. It's up there. An NFC East battle between the Washington Commanders, who are 7-5, versus the New York Football Giants, who are 7-4. Every team in the NFC East would be in the playoffs if the season ended today, which is something very, awesome. This division's come a long way from the Commanders winning it when they were 7-9. That was only 2 years ago. So this division is it's easily the toughest division in football, a very close division. And no one also projected these two teams to be in the playoff hunt. It was really just the Eagles and the Cowboys, and these two teams are in the middle of the rebuild. But both of these teams have been very shocking and very surprising. The Commanders have found new life since Taylor Heineke took over. They've only lost one game, and that's to the Minnesota Vikings, who are the second best team in the NFC and a top 5 team, arguably, in the NFL. So it shows you a lot that this team has a lot of perseverance. a good thing for the Commanders is that Chase Young, 2020 Offensive Rookie of the Year. I know we had a down year last year, but Chase Young is still pretty solid, pretty good pass rusher. He should be coming back soon. It is not known if it's going to be this week or next week, but he is on the track of coming back. And this team has potential to make noise for the rest of the season. Shane, the last couple of years, we've always said the Commanders have always had one good thing about them, and that is their defensive line. With Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, and now Chase Young. Where would you rank this team's defensive line in the rest of the NFL? I think it's a top 5 defensive line. What do you think?
I think top 3. Honestly, I can't think. I think them, Tampa Bay, and Dallas. Honestly, like those would be my top 3 go-tos for defensive line standpoint. But you are right. Their defensive line has always been, especially over the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah, they've been pretty good defensive line wise. Their secondary, that's a completely different story. But their defensive line, they've been pretty solid.
And now that is one of the most underrated parts of a football team is the defensive line. And really, it doesn't really get talked about enough because when you think of why the Buccaneers beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, what was the reason? Their defensive line. You can pressure 4 people and basically have the same of bringing 6. You know what I'm saying? So you don't really need the blitz, and you can generate pressure. And also with a good defensive line, you can obviously stop the run very well, which will be good to see against the Giants, who obviously have Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. So it'll be fun to see if this elite defensive line can contain one of the best running backs in football. That's going to be something to watch,
And you can think of it like this too. Right before we continue on, if you have 4 defensive linemen, and this is why I put the Cowboys on there, because this specific thing they do. You guys know whom I talk about, Micah Parsons. He gets down at that DN position. He can rush. He's got, I think he's 2nd in sacks so far this year. And then, he can go out and coverage. So you can send blitzes and have your defensive line go out and cover because they're able to cover. You have defensive linemen like Michael Parsons to be able to do that. Or like Shaq Barrett.
It's not fair because most defensive linemen like TJ Watt.
I know that. Yeah, TJ Watt's another one. I know that because I don't want to toot my own horn, but I play linebacker, but I can also play DN and D tackle, and I can go out in coverage. Will, you've seen you know how athletic I am. So when you have a player like that plays defensive line, that's scary because you can do anything on defense, coverage and blitz wise.
Right. And some pass rushers like TJ Watt, he may struggle in pass coverage, or that might be a little bit of a weakness. But Micah Parsons does it all so well. But anyway, let's get back on topic. The Giants have been injured the last couple of weeks, and they need to get healthy if the Giants want to make the playoffs. As a Giants fan, we could lose every single game, and I would be upset. But we were not expected to win 7 games this year, so this is definitely a step in the right direction for the New York Giants. I would theoretically not want to lose out, but if we somehow did, or we only won 1 more game, I would not be mad because it's just a sign that the future is bright for the Giants. Now here I got a couple questions for you, Shane. Where does Carson Wentz's future lie? Do you think he's going to be a backup for the rest of his career? Because he got benched by Taylor Heineke, he got benched for Jalen Hurts by the Eagles, and now the Colts didn't want nothing to do with him. Do you think he will be a career backup for the rest of his career?
I mean, I don't think he'll be a backup. I think he'll go on a journey quarterback type of thing. I think he'll go on multiple teams, and I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now that he's gonna go to the Atlanta Falcons. They're gonna trade because I don't think he's gonna be a free agent at the end of this year. I don't know what
the Commanders signed him to a contract extension. I could be wrong on that, but
yeah. So I think he somehow, some way. Lands on the Falcons squad next year, and I honestly think he's only 29, so he's kind of like in a situation like Mariota was in. You know what I mean? Right. When he was with the Titans. So we'll see. I generally think he's got 7 years of experience. So
that makes me feel old.
I don't think. It's tough because they're going behind Taylor Heineke.
Which is the right decision.
It is the right decision.
Ride the hot hand. Ride the hot hand. That's what they say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is his third different team in like 3 years. He's with the Eagles in 2020, Colts 21, and then obviously the Commanders this year. So like he hasn't really like, and he didn't do bad with the Colts last year necessarily either. It's just, push came to shove and the Colts didn't really want him. So I think he's going to.
This is what Pat McAfee said on the Pat McAfee show. He said this about Carson Wentz. He was like, Carson Wentz was very solid the whole year, right? He wasn't lights out. He was almost like Jimmy Garoppolo, very solid. Carson Wentz had one game where he was shitty. One bad game. What was that bad game? The last game of the year, but had to bring him in the playoffs. That was it. I mean, that was it. He had one bad game, and he chose it to be the worst game of the year. A must-win game. He had a terrible game. They want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, no, he had 3,500 passing yards, and he had 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So he wasn't bad. Like you said, he was solid. And it's just, I don't think he's a big-time quarterback. Like, I think that's why a lot of teams don't really want him, because if he gets on a good team, like, is it going to be worth it going, 13-4 in the regular season and then being a first-round exit with him as your quarterback?
Right.
I generally don't see him staying on one team for a very long time for the rest of his career. That's my take on it.
Now, my last question for you is, now there's a couple, I've been seeing that both of these teams are slightly overrated. With the Commanders, it's the people say they're overrated because of Taylor Heineke. And for the Giants, it's really Daniel Jones. The fact that both of these teams have an easy schedule. They are not as good as their record shows. And even Vegas agrees. If you look at the spread with the Giants, they thought the Cowboys would blow them out. The Cowboys are like 11-point favorites. So my question for you is, are either of these teams overrated, or do you think both of these teams are properly rated as they are?
I think the Giants are a little – I honestly think the Giants are just a tad bit underrated, just a tad. And then I think the Commanders are a little bit overrated, just because they're not. I wouldn't say they're not consistent, but they're kind of riding the hot hand, like we said, with Taylor Heineke, and I feel like that's not the best way to. What are they, 5-1 since he became the starter? 4-1, something like that.
Five. They've only lost once, so I think 5-1.
So, like
I said, they only lost to the Vikings.
Yeah, so. Like ever since Taylor Heineke started, like obviously their record is 7-5. So I definitely think Giants are the way better team, and it's the fact that the record, like Washington 7-5, Giants are 7-4. So I definitely think the Giants are a little bit underrated, and the Washington is just like I don't see them as a playoff team, whereas the Giants I can see them as a wild card team.
Right. So my last thing for you, Shane, is who do you got win this game? Are you going to take the hot hand with Taylor Heineke, with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, or are you going to ride the wave with Saquon Barkley, who is, in my opinion, I might be biased, comeback player of the year. He has shushed all the haters. Going into this year, Saquon Barkley people thought he was washed, and he would silence that crowd. So who do you got win this game? Commanders or Giants?
I don't agree with you with the comeback player of the year comment. I think Henry has that all the way, but I think the Giants are going to win this game. I think it's going to be 24-10 or 24-14 Giants.
I'm going to make it a little bit more of a closer game. 23-20 Giants. It should be a good game, and this is also a must-win for both of these opponents. A divisional matchup. It's two close teams in the rankings. This should be a great game. And I'm surprised this is on primetime, honestly, because this could easily be on the primetime, and I wouldn't complain. A great rivalry. Both of these teams that hate each other. NFC East, obviously the best division in football. It's going to be a great game to watch. 23-20 Giants.
No, it's definitely a game I'm definitely going to watch out for. But moving on to our next one, it's going to be maybe kind of the same situation with both teams maybe being a little overrated, underrated, stuff like that. We have the Jaguars who are facing the Lions, and both teams are 4-7. They've gotten there in different ways though. For Detroit, they have a very explosive offense, but it is very inconsistent. They rank 8th in the league in points. They scored 30 or more points 5 times so far this year, and it's hard to believe they don't have 5 wins with that. So, and the reason for that being is because Detroit's defense is awful. They rank last in the league in points allowed at 28.2, and have allowed 24 or more points in 9 of their 11 games, which is obviously why they have 7 losses. For Jacksonville, they've outscored all of their opponents by 12 points, or outscored its opponents by 12 points, and they rank league average in offense and defense. So for these teams, a lot of them thought they were going to be I wouldn't say a lot worse, but they didn't think they'd be as entertaining to watch. I love watching the Lions play, especially offensively. I think if they stay consistent, they could be possibly one of the top 5 offensives in the NFL. So this game doesn't really have any playoff implications to it. But which team do you think is more important to win this game? Which team is more important to win? The Lions or the Jaguars?
That's a tough question. Yeah, both of these teams are very similar. Kind of like what you pointed out. Neither of these teams were projected to make the playoffs, but there was one thing we wanted to see from each of these teams: progress, improvement. And both of these teams have. I believe the Jaguars won 3 games last year, and they've improved. And the Lions won 3 games last year, and they've improved. These were also the top 2 picks in the draft last year was the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Lions. So it's tough to say, who's this more important for? I mean, I would want to say the Lions, but I mean, there really is no wrong answer here. It's also going to be a close game, even though, like you said, there's no implication for the playoffs. It will be a close game considering the talent on this team. The Jaguars, you got Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk. On defense, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, and it's Josh Allen. And on the Lions, they're going to have supposedly Jameson Williams, rookie wide receiver from Alabama, Shane, who was easily considered to be the best receiver in the draft, but he just tore his ACL in the national title game last year. So he should make his season debut this week. I apologize. So it'll be interesting to see how Dan Campbell incorporates into that offense, because I don't know if you saw him at Alabama last year, Shane, but he was insane. He was nuts.
Oh no! Trust me, man. As being a Georgia fan, trust me. I know who he is. Trust me. That man's scary. That's all I got to say. He is him.
I mean, I don't expect him to have a full workload, but it definitely will be fun for him to make his debut. And if he develops the way he should, then him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that is going to be a young receiving duo that will put the league on notice. And it's just crazy, all the young talent in this game. I already mentioned Trevor Lawrence and Trayvon Walker. We also got Aiden Hutchinson from Detroit. Like I said, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jeff Okudah. Like the young talent in this game, Shane, is nuts, and it'll just be fun to watch because both players on these teams have potential to be future stars in the NFL.
No, I definitely agree. Who do you have winning this game, though?
It's a close game. Like I said, it could go either way. There really is no right or wrong answer, but I'm going to go with my gut and say that I got Dan Campbell and the Lions, I think that they just have slightly more momentum. They almost upset the Bills on Thanksgiving. And then 2 weeks ago, they upset the Giants on the road. So I think I'm going to go with the Lions, even though the Jaguars just beat the Ravens.
I was about to say, man, you can't forget they pulled a hat trick against the Ravens.
So I got the Lions winning 27-24. What about you, Shane?
See, it's crazy. And you know what? I always go with the Lions because I trust their offense, but they're very inconsistent. Kind of like how you always pick the Raiders. Yeah, it's funny because you didn't pick them this week and they ended up winning, which is actually funny. But I feel like this week, they really got me. I feel like they really got my back. They say 30-23 Lions.
It'll be a good game, but this is another very good game right here on the slate. We got the New York Jets, who are 7-4, versus the Minnesota Vikings, 9-2. The Jets looked great last week after benching Zach Wilson, starting Mike White. They probably should have done it sooner. I Yeah, I mean, it's a coin flip. That some people they said they should have started him sooner. Some said they shouldn't have. I mean, it's a coin flip. Some people. It just depends who you ask. I don't think Mike White is crazy, but I think whether Mike White is their long-term starter we'll have to see. But it's good to see Zach Wilson get benched because he needs to get his attitude on check. But my favorite matchup for this is going to be Justin Jefferson, who is arguably the best wide receiver in football. The catches he makes are nuts. And he's got the rookie cornerback he's locked everybody up. He's locked up Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Cortland Sutton, Alan Lazard. I can go on and on. This man is not allowed a single touchdown this year. You already know who I'm talking about, Shane. It's Sauce Gardner. And that's going to be a matchup to watch. Let's see. Can Sauce Gardner finally allow his first touchdown? Will Justin Jefferson humble the young rookie? What do you think, Shane? Who do you got winning this? Sauce Gardner or Justin Jefferson?
I think you already know, my guy. I'm riding Saucy. I loved him. I saw him when he played against Georgia a couple in the playoffs, the college playoffs, obviously. He's just a different breed, and I don't think people understand his technique on how he approaches his games, like his preparation to the field, to how he actually covers the wide receivers. His technique is so it's like perfection. You can never be perfect in this type of game, but it's like the closest thing to perfection technique wise I've ever seen. And if you have the technique down and you practice it, you can lock up anybody, especially the Justin Jefferson. I got Sauce Gardner, man. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, "What? It's Justin Jefferson." I'm like, listen, man, Sauce Gardner, he's the real deal. I already think he's a top 3 corner in the NFL right now. I'm going to go out there and say it. I think he's top 3. So I got Gardner on this one.
And not to mention, Sauce Gardner, if he's not on Jefferson the whole game, which he most likely won't be, that's just not how coverages work. He's got Adam Thielen, who is another he's not elite anymore, but he's definitely a very good receiver. So Sauce Gardner has a tough task.
He's a red zone threat. He's a red zone threat.
Yep, and Sauce Gardner has got a tough task to be on, but let's see who prepares that. It will be fun to watch, though.
I want people to understand why we talk about Sauce Gardner when we talk about the Jets so much. It's because this man has over I don't know how long he played up until high school, but this man has this man has roughly 7 years of high level plays of playing football at cornerback, possibly the hardest position in NFL, and has not allowed a single touchdown to anybody. This man has went up against Georgia. He went up against George Pickens. Didn't allow in college. Didn't allow that man he shut Pickens down in the playoffs. He, like you said, all the NFL stars he's played, high school, he's not allowed a single touchdown, which is the craziest thing. That's insane. When you really think about it, 6 years roughly, 6-7 years of not allowing a touchdown. That's crazy. That's probably the most impressive thing I've ever even seen or heard of.
It's almost like video game numbers. It doesn't seem real, but it is.
No.
And the thing about Sauce that I also like is his swagger and his confidence. He's a cocky son of a bitch. I'm not gonna lie, but he backs it up. So you can't really say anything about him. I think he solidified himself as top 3 when he took the cheesehead from Lambeau Field and he was walking into the tunnel and he just raised his arms and spun and he knew. Lambeau Field shouting at him, they're throwing shit at him, and he just knew I own your team.
That was his "I am him" moment in the NFL. That was his "I am him," and you guys can't do a damn thing about it.
Right. But continuing without we can talk about him all day, but let's just continue. So the Vikings have a legit chance of becoming the first team to clinch a playoff spot. They can clinch the NFC North with a win and the Lions loss or tie. So the Vikings could clinch a playoff spot this week. They're the first team that can do that. So it'll be interesting to see if they have all the cards fall their way. Dalvin Cook has been having a solid year, and that is something going on the radar because when you think of the Vikings, you think of Justin Jefferson. But people sometimes undervalue how good Dalvin Cook is, and he's been having a pretty solid year that, like I said, does not get talked about a lot. So, Shane, my last question for you, or my question for you for this game is, where does Zach Wilson's future lie? Do you think he gets traded during the offseason, or do you think the Jets give him one more shot?
I think he gets traded, man. I think Mike White is a way better quarterback. He has like 4 touchdowns, and I think Zach Wilson has like that many in 7 games that he started, and Mike White has it in 1 game or 2 games or whatever, however long he's been playing. I think Mike White is better fit for this offense as well. I don't think Zach Wilson really trusts his game. You know what I mean? He doesn't really have that like game time confidence. So I honestly think he's going to get traded for like a couple late round picks, or it could be 1 late round pick. Who knows? I feel like I don't know who he would go to necessarily, but like I don't think he's going to be a Jet for that after this year.
So this might be a hot take, but I think the Vikings are going to win this game. I know a lot of people want to pick the Jets with, obviously their defense and, Mike White and Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson had a great game with Mike White, and I think he's another very great building piece for this Jets team. Who do you got winning this game, though? Like I said, I got the Vikings winning 27-23.
I think the Vikings are going to win too. I think it's going to be 21-20, a little bit closer game, a little bit less scoring. I do predict though that Sauce Gardner does not give up another a touchdown. I think Dalvin Cook's going to have a really big game. Honestly, I think he'll get a couple rushing touchdowns, and he'll kind of carry this offense this week, just because of the Jets secondary is really really good. Moving on to our next game though, this is going to be a very interesting game. This is probably one of my favorite games this week. We have the Titans who are 7-4 versus the 10-1 Eagles. After a tough loss to the Bengals, the Titans are looking to try to bounce back against the 10-1 Eagles. King Henry only had 38, I believe it was only 38 rushing yards last week, but he did have 79 receiving yards, which is actually a career high for him. He'll need to have a big game in order for Tennessee to even have a chance. Tennessee's defense has been very, very, very underrated this year. They have had 8 straight games without allowing 20 or more points, which is crazy. For the Eagles, obviously Jalen Hurts, he's definitely in the MVP race. After a breakout season in his second year as a full-time starter, obviously no one really predicted the Eagles to be this good this year. Do you consider? Well, this is a question for you. Do you consider the Eagles as a Super Bowl contender if they keep playing the way they've been playing this year?
See, the easy question is yes, but I think there's a lot of teams. I think the NFC is wide open. You could say the Eagles, and I would say I agree with you. You could say the Cowboys. I agree with you. The Vikings and the Niners. I could all agree with you. Those are the 4 teams in the NFC that I think almost unanimously people agree on will win the NFC. Unless Tom Brady, which is completely not out of the picture, makes a crazy-ass playoff run. It's not like we haven't seen that 7 times, right? Unless he does something crazy. I think it's almost universally agreed that those are the 4 favorites of the NFC. And obviously the Eagles are the best team record-wise. And besides that one slip-up with the Commanders, they've been dominant, People said their schedule is easy. They played the Steelers, and then the people are like, oh, they played the Steelers. That's why the Eagles are like good. I was like, yes, but they're beating the Steelers by like 30 points. They're blowing bad teams out. They're smashing them. Like they're not making it close. I know it's been a little bit close. They almost lost to the Colts. I forgot who the Eagles played last week. I'm not really too sure who they played last week.
The Colts?
No, the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles? Oh shit. I don't even know. Did they have a bye? I don't even know. Hang on. The Eagles. Hang on. I think the Eagles. I generally don't.
Packers. I found it. They played the Packers.
It was the Thursday night game. It was the Thursday night game, I think.
Sunday.
Right?
Sunday night. But my point is like, they're just playing well against these teams. Like, the Eagles. This is not like college football or college basketball where the Eagles make their schedule of easy teams. This is how the schedule you know your schedule right when your season's over. You know what I'm saying? You know what teams you're playing. So they knew who they were playing, and this is how it happened to be. You know, the Eagles were better than people expected. They got an easy schedule by the luck of the draw, and they were just better. And I think people have to stop complaining that their schedule is easy because that's just how it is. That's the NFL.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like that's one thing. I definitely think that's one thing that people, that basic generic NFL fans, which obviously Will express his displeasure about basic NFL fans.
It's okay. Like, I'm not saying that like everyone has to be a diehard fan, but like, don't say stupid shit. Like if you
Will has seen me lost my shit at a bar at one of our local bars here where I live about basic Bills fans. Like, those are the most basic fans. I can't stand basic Bill fans. But I feel like basic NFL fans don't understand like the small things about the NFL that like make a difference. You know what I mean? And like scheduling is definitely one of them.
Right.
But we'll talk about the Titans for a little bit, then we'll discuss who's going to win this game. For the Titans, obviously everybody knows Ryan Tannehill is their quarterback, but Derrick Henry is the guy that leads this team pretty much. He's kind of the I wouldn't even say the captain, but like he's the guy that, if they win, he had a big game. Obviously
Right.
only have 38 rushing yards last week. He did have almost 80 receiving yards, but it wasn't quite enough to beat the Bengals. Do you think what do you think the Titans are really missing in their offense or on their team? Because their defense is really good. People don't realize it because they think, like I said, offensively, Derrick Henry is their offense. But what do you think they need to do to get it to that next level so a lot of teams take them more seriously when playoffs come around?
I think they just don't need a quarterback. They need a couple pieces. I think they need a quarterback, they need a receiver, and they need some help on the offensive line. And I know that's asking a lot, almost like half their team. But when you think of the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, is he bad? No. Is he good? Is he great? No. He does what he has to do. He's like a worse Jimmy Garoppolo. Like Ryan Tannehill is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. No, he is. Like, that's the best way to describe him.
That's a unique way of describing him, but it makes sense.
Like, he's a game manager. There's nothing wrong with being a game manager, but and nowadays NFL, like, that just doesn't work anymore. It worked 15 years ago, but now it doesn't. So I think they need a quarterback, and then wide receiver is a big question mark. They got Robert Woods, who they traded for from the Rams, who's been having a very quiet year, which is expected. He's old and he's in a very disadvantageous position, big word. And same thing for Treylon Burks. They drafted him in the first round with the pick they used from the Eagles that they gave away for A.J. Brown. And Treylon Burks, the last couple games he's been having a pretty good. I think he caught a touchdown against the Packers, and I know he Derrick Henry fumbled at the 1 yard line or something, and he recovered it for a touchdown. So he scored, I believe, in 2 weeks in a row. But he's a question mark. Like, will he break out? Will he continue to be the guy that the Titans want him to be, like an A.J. Brown replacement? We won't know. But the receiver room is very up in the air, and so is Ryan Tannehill. They arguably have one of the worst receiving groups in the NFL, and because of that, teams can stack the box with Derrick Henry. They can play one safety back and bring a safety in the box, and they can stack it with 8 people and be completely fine. Because they don't have good receivers. So.
No, I definitely agree. Who do you think is going to win this game, Will?
I think the Eagles are going to win 20-10. I think the Titans defense continues their streak of not allowing more than 20 points. But I think the Eagles defense is just too much to handle. I know that they're a little bit challenging at stopping the run. Ever since Jordan Davis from Georgia has been injured, he's a great player. I think he does not get enough credit on this Eagles defense. But the numbers don't lie. But this team is night and day better against the run. So, when he's on the field, I don't think he's coming back this game, but my point is the Eagles will just do enough to shut Derrick Henry down. So I got the Eagles winning 20-10. What about you, Shane?
All right. Before I give you my answer, well, I saw this on Instagram. And I had to think about it for a bit. 1-on-1. Derrick Henry gets the ball. You see Jordan Davis, 6'6", 380. Derrick Henry, 6'6", 250. Who are you taking? You taking my guy? You taking the big athletic lineman, or you taking King Henry?
I considering that like got dudes smaller than Jordan Davis have like hit stick Derrick Henry and like trucked him and put him on his ass. I gotta go with Jordan Davis. That's a
Really?
close one.
That's that. Yeah, I eventually picked King Henry because he's a beast. But I agree with you. I see the Titans kind of like a how we were talking about the Patriots and not having a great run game and having a great defense. I feel like they're like a better version of the Patriots where they have to rely on Derrick Henry or they can't really move the ball. Like you said, their wide receiver core isn't that great, just like the Patriots. So I'm definitely going to take the Eagles in this game. I'm going to take them 24-14. Um, I just don't see the Titans really beating this team in any way. Like you said, they're really good against the Eagles are really good against the rush. So it's gonna be a good game, but it's gonna be interesting to watch. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's definitely something you should tune in. Definitely a game watcher.
Let's get into two teams that have definitely underperformed this year, but it is the old I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's one of the oldest rivalries in football. NFC North, Packers Bears. The Packers are 4-8. The Bears are 3-9. The Packers have struggled all year, but there's one thing for sure, Shane. Aaron Rodgers is still the owner of the Chicago Bears. They have won 7 in a row against Chicago. The Bears have something special with Justin Fields. There was questions to see if they would sit him for the rest of the year with his shoulder, but they have ruled that out. So Justin Fields will be playing. So that's a risky thing. They better hope he doesn't get hurt. You know, Jordan Love played last week when Aaron Rodgers left early with a rib injury or oblique, I think something like that. And Jordan Love played pretty well. And Aaron Rodgers said that he'd be open to a quarterback change if the Packers are out of the playoff hunt. So be prepared to potentially see Jordan Love in the playing for the Packers unless the Packers go on a crazy run. Some bad things about the Bears is 2 of their best players are out for the rest of the season. Eddie Jackson and Darnell Mooney are out for the rest of the season with foot and ankle injuries, which just suck for the Bears. You know, this team had a lot of, they've been showing a lot of growth, and that just is a big step back. So Shane, these two teams are obviously underperforming. This has most likely no playoff implication unless the Packers can go on a run. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that Chase Claypool, who has been pretty quiet with the Bears since they traded for him, he's been very quiet. Last week he had his best game as a Chicago Bear. Do you think that since Darnell Mooney is out for the rest of the year, that Chase Claypool steps up as the Bears' number 1 receiver?
I definitely do. I think that's a no-brainer. I think that Chase Claypool is a lot better than people really think. Just because he makes TikToks doesn't mean he's a bad receiver. I generally think that next year is when we'll really see how well he can perform in this offense. Because, like you said, we talk about it. The Bears are really rebuilding. I feel like they're really starting to build around Justin Fields. And Chase Claypool is a great player to start that with. So it'll be definitely interesting in the future, see how much of the load he can handle. Because I generally think starting next year, Chase Claypool will take a lot of the wide receiver 1 type routes and catches. Yeah, so it's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, I know. And Chase Claypool, I know last week earlier we were talking about how good Sauce is, but Chase Claypool did have a great catch over Sauce Gardner. It was like a 40-yard fly route. After that, he became pretty quiet. But Chase Claypool, I know we talked about him a lot when the Bears traded for him. But if there is any time to step up, now is the time. You have a rookie quarterback, a struggling receiving room. The number 1 receiver is out for the rest of the year with an ankle or leg injury or something. So now step up. This is your time. Him and Cole Kmet, the tight end, are going to have to step up if the Bears want to salvage their season. But I got the Packers winning this game 23-17. It doesn't matter. The Packers could be 0-20 or 0-15 or 0-10, but they play the Chicago Bears. They're going to win. So I got the Packers winning 23-17. What about you, Shane?
I pretty much have the same score. I have the Packers winning 23-20. I think the Bears they're going to make it close in this one, but I don't think they have. I don't think overall team wise they have enough to beat the Packers just yet, especially with Aaron Rodgers still there. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Though definitely to tune in on. But on to our next game. We have the Broncos who are 3-8 versus the Ravens who are 7-4. Now, I always kind of shit on Will because he was so high on the Broncos last offseason and last year, and now they're doing it so badly. But it's really bad. They've lost 7 of 8 since starting the season, 2-1. Their last previous win on American soil came on September 25th when they beat the 49ers 11-10. As for the Ravens, they took a tough loss to Jacksonville last week. They're third overall on the defensive side the Broncos are third overall on the defensive side of the ball. That's one good upside for the Broncos team. But the Ravens, they have very explosive offense, and it's kind of underrated just because they don't have a lot of big star names besides Lamar Jackson offensive wise. Speaking of quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, he's been a problem all year. He's got 7 touchdowns this season. I believe 7. I've had, fair my warning, my language. I've had sex more times this year than Russell Wilson has had touchdown passes. That's how bad it is. So
That's funny. That came out of left field. I was like, what's he gonna say?
Ryder rocket, baby. Back on the topic. Speaking of Russell Wilson, Will, my question for you: do you think Russell Wilson is declining, or do you think it's the offensive play calling around him that's making him struggle so bad?
I don't know. Like, it's a tough question. I'm not the only person that was high in the Broncos in the offseason, though. Let's be fair. They had a lot of hype, and it's almost like you can't make this up. It just doesn't make sense that this team has gotten worse with Russell Wilson at quarterback over Teddy Bridgewater. Like, how is Teddy Bridgewater? How is he better than Russell Wilson? I don't make sense.
He was in a better situation. Like, how? Like, you're right. How does that? Like human analogy? It just doesn't make sense. Like, I can't think of any other words to make more sense that Russell Wilson would be better for this team, but they're 3-8 right now through 11 games. How does that make sense?
Their coach is also really stupid. Like, I think their coach is an idiot. He's a baboon. He's a monkey, bonobo, whatever. Like, I can go on and on. He's just an idiot. And I really feel like it's not all on him. Like, Russell Wilson is partially to blame, but I do think their coach is an idiot. And it's been like that since week 1, where it's like 4th and 2, and you kick a 63-yard field goal on someone that's never made a 60-plus yard field goal. It started right there. That's when you know this guy's a retard. Like,
especially in Denver. Like, what?
No, yeah, it's just like stupid. Like, you're paying however big Russ's contract is, $275 million for a quarterback, and you don't go for it on 4th and 2. You kick a 63-yard field goal. Like, come on, dude. Like, it's been like this all year for the Broncos. But the Ravens, I think, if they wanted a bounce back game, this is the game. I know the Broncos do have a great defense. That is one good thing about the Broncos. But, if the Ravens just want to get a win, it doesn't matter if they win sloppily or not. This is the game to do it, because the Broncos offense sucks. They average like 14 points a game. That's like literally terrible. That's a touchdown and a half. That is terrible for the whole year. And the Broncos, if the Broncos scored 18 points a game, I believe the Broncos would be like 8-2 or something like that. They would be very good if they scored 18 a game, but they can't do that. So I think the Ravens are going to win this game. I'll say 20-9, Ravens.
20-9. I have kind of a similar score. I got a 27-10. I think Lamar Jackson. I feel like he's been thrown under the radar ever since he won his MVP. Ever since his MVP year, he's still a great talent. Obviously, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I think he's going to have a really good game. So I have 27-10 Ravens.
Let's get into our next game, which is definitely the most publicized matchup. The only time the Houston Texans are going to get publicity this year. The Cleveland Browns, who are 4-7, versus the Houston Texans, who are 1-9-1. You know, the big thing is Deshaun Watson will be returning for the first time in 700 days to play his former team. So there's going to be a lot of emotions here. A lot of people think Deshaun Watson shouldn't play this year. That's neither here nor there. Like, he's going to be playing. I think it sucks that, the NFL doesn't care about people who literally rape or sexually assault at least people. It's just whatever. I mean, that's just how the NFL is. Roger Goodell doesn't care. The Browns need to start winning if they want to make the playoffs. It's kind of, if Deshaun Watson could come at any other time, this would be the perfect time. They definitely still could. They can win up to 10 games. They actually be able to do it. But does Deshaun Watson still have it in him? He hasn't played football in almost 2 years, and now he has to win 6 games in a row to have his team make the playoffs. So I know, Shane, one of your catchphrases is, oh boy, oh boy. Well, this is an oh boy moment because the Texans have the worst rushing defense in the NFL.
Oh,
the Browns have a guy who is.
Let's go, baby.
Shane, who you might have heard of. He's from Georgia. He's Nick Chubb. Oh boy. That's all I'm going to say. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
It's not going to look good for the Texans this game. But I got a couple questions for you, Shane. But first let me answer this question. How rusty will Deshaun Watson be? I don't really know. I think that's going to really be luckily, again, he's playing a very bad team, so if he is rusty, it shouldn't matter because they can always just go with Nick Chubb in the run game. But, I guess we'll have to find out. He does have a good matchup, but let's see how the Browns will how he'll play. So my first question for you is, will the Browns' offense be similar to when Jacoby Brissett was at quarterback, or do you think they're going to open up the playbook with Deshaun Watson?
I think they're going to open it up just because of the team they're playing. The Texans are so bad. It's like kind of funny. So I think with Watson coming back, they're going to open it up a little bit. I think he'll be okay, like rust wise. I think I don't think like quarterback's kind of one of those positions where like you just naturally, like you've been playing it for so long. It's just a a habit. You know what I mean? Especially with the line that they got, he's not playing with like a terrible O-line or anything, so I don't think he'll have to worry about being rusty. And like you said, if he does show some rust, just give it the Nick Chubb and he'll fucking. I'm telling you, he might get to 300 yards in this game. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, because this team that they're facing, the Houston Texans, might as well be called Houston garbage because they suck against the run. They suck in general. Their quarterback's trash. Their team's trash. Everything about this team is trash. Like I don't know what else. They're just terrible. Nick Chubb is gonna.
They're definitely gonna get the first pick in the draft.
There's the Nick Chubb is gonna fucking kill a cornerback if he tries tackling him because he's fucking 220 pounds of straight muscle and fucking you're not Browns are gonna win this game. The Cleveland Browns are gonna win this game by like 30 fucking points, and Nick Chubb's gonna have a game. They're gonna make multiple inside jokes about Deshaun Watson and being a fucking pedophile, or not pedophile, but a fucking sexual
rapist.
Fucking
Rapist,
pretty much.
Maybe I'll never refer to him as a rapist, a sexual assaulter. Yeah.
So that's like, this game is not going to be entertaining at all unless you see Nick Chubb have the ball, like in my opinion. So, there's no other really like things to say about this game. But with Deshaun Watson, he's not answering any, like for the rest of the year, he's not answering any non-football related questions in press conferences, social medias, like any of that. I don't know if you saw, but there's a video of him like answering questions. I think it was before the Browns' last practice. It was like the media showed up in their locker room or whatever, and they were asking him questions that weren't football related, and he straight up goes, "I will not be answering any non-football questions." So, that's the price you get when you do what you did to 20 plus fucking women. But yeah, so I have the Browns winning this game. I can't remember if you had any other questions, but I definitely have the Browns winning.
So, I got the Browns winning as well, 27-10. I think it'll be a blowout.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I think Deshaun Watson's actually gonna play well. Like I said, Nick Chubb's gonna take over. I think it's gonna be 35-10, Cleveland. On to our next game, which is kind of a weird game, but it's got a lot of history behind both of these teams. Seattle, who are 6-5, will face off against the LA Rams, who are 3-8. Bobby Wagner, who was the heart, the middle linebacker, the main guy, pretty much, in the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Doom defense for a full decade. From a rookie, hard-hitting rookie linebacker, he's now a 6-time All-Pro, Super Bowl ring. Possibly the best linebacker in his generation. Will face off against his old team for the first time. So that's gonna be interesting to watch. And then on the Rams side of it, as well, All-Pro defensive tackle Aaron Donald. You ready for this, Will? Will miss his first career game in 9 years due to injury, as he has to rest his sprained ankle. So that's pretty entertaining. And I believe Matthew Stafford is also out for this game.
He's out for the season.
He's out for the season. So the Rams aren't, nothing's really going well for them this year ever since they won the Super Bowl. We'll just say it at that. Seattle's lost two straight games. So they're kind of in a slump, but so the Rams have lost 5 straight. So like both teams are kind of in a slump. Which team needs a win more, and why? That's my question for you, Will.
I mean, I think I obviously want to say the Rams because they're worse, but I think the Rams season's over. The Lions, I mean, the Rams did win the Super Bowl, obviously, but maybe the Lions did win that trade considering they're going to have a top 5 pick this year and their own first round pick, which will probably be like a top 10 pick. So they're going to have 2 top 10 picks. So that's another thing about the Lions' future that people don't really talk about is their picks next year. On the other hand, the Seahawks, they were not expected to be this good. And Geno Smith, Geno Smith's having a great year. And obviously not just him, they arguably had the best draft class in the last 10 years. They got 5 starters out of this defensive draft, which is just nuts. Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant. Then they got 2 starting tackles, Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross, and obviously Kenneth Walker, who I already mentioned. So the Seahawks had a great draft. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game. The Rams are having quite the Super Bowl hangover. I believe if they don't make if they don't have a winning record, this will be the first time in like 20 years, I believe, that the defending Super Bowl champs don't have a winning record. In 20 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's actually crazy. The Rams are just not I don't know. All I got to say is this season for a lot of these teams have been very, very, very weird. Very weird.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, 100%.
But so who do you have winning this game here, Will? I got sidetracked for a second. My bad.
No, you're good. I got the Seahawks winning 24-13. I don't think the Rams are going to be very good the rest of the year. Like I said, a Super Bowl hangover. 24-13 Rams. What about you?
I'm going with Seattle. I think.
Oh, my bad, Seahawks. I apologize. 24-14 Seahawks. I apologize.
Come on, Will.
What I said. Whoops.
We are professionals here. I have the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks winning 30-10. This offense is not good without Matthew Stafford. They were struggling already. They have a bad defensive line or offensive line. Wow. Okay, we're both fucking up here, Will. Come on now.
No, literally, you're kidding.
I think defensive wise, the Rams aren't as good as they once were. Obviously, without Aaron Donald, that defensive line takes a big blow. The Seahawks O-line has been surprisingly pretty consistent this year, so I have the Seahawks winning this game 30-10.
Oh, let's get into our how many? I got 3 more games, Shane. What about you?
I got 2. I got the Monday night game, and then I have Chiefs and Bengals.
Okay, word. So I'll do mine, and then you do yours, and I'll do 2 in a row, and then you'll do Monday night. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So my next one is the AFC West battle. The LA Chargers, who are 6-5, versus the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 4-7. The Raiders have won back-to-back nail biters in overtime. Is this where they turn around their season and make a playoff push? I mean, I feel like the Raiders. I've talked about them, a very team that has had a lot of hype. They have not lived up to it, but if they win one more game, I think that becomes a serious talk of discussion. Like, can the Raiders make a playoff run if they win this game? If they don't, then they're kind of SOL. They're kind of screwed. But if they win this game, I don't think that's too far out of the picture to go on a run. But that's just my opinion. Josh Jacobs has been insane this year. I think he'll get a massive contract this offseason, whether it is from the Raiders or some team in free agency. He has been having definitely the best year of his career. If you like shootouts, then you'll love this game. This game will be an offensive clash with all the talent on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen for the Chargers, and then the Raiders, like I said, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Matt Collins, Derek Carr. Like this will be a great game for the offensive side of the ball. If you like shootouts, Shane, again, you'll like this game. Devontae Adams should feast this game, as he's been having a great year, but it's not being talked about because he's on the Raiders. He's got a different quarterback, but Devontae Adams has really had one bad game against the Saints. But besides that, he's been killing it all year. No new quarterback, no problem. That's what Devontae's been doing. And Shane, my question for you is the Chargers. A lot of questions are going on with their head coach. I think their head coach is not very good. I know last week they won it on a 2-point conversion try, but I mean, I think he takes way too much risks. I feel like he goes for it on 4th down way too much. He goes for it 2 way too much. And yes, it works out when it does, it's awesome. But when it doesn't, it's terrible. I think he takes way too much risk and he's not conservative enough. But do you think the Chargers should trade for a former head coach, Sean Payton, or do you think they should keep with Brandon Staley?
I think they need to call Sean Payton up. This team is way too good to be this bad. Talent-wise, at least. They have pretty much everything. The couple things you could question is their defense, and Sean Payton could definitely fix that because, Sean Payton usually always has pretty solid defenses when he was with New Orleans. And I generally think they should, seriously call up Sean Payton and convince him to get out of retirement and start coaching again.
Not to mention it's in LA. So people, it's like...
That too. So, the Chargers, they need to do something, with their staff, because this team is way too talented to be this
mediocre.
Bad.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not bad.
I wouldn't even say they're bad. I'd consider them average, and they shouldn't be average. They should be in the playoff hunt.
They should be elite. They preseason odds. They were up there with the Chiefs and the Bills to win the AFC. So they're way too good to be average. But I know I don't want to curse the Raiders. I know I picked the Raiders and they lose. But I'm going to pick the Raiders this week. If the Raiders lose, I'm going to be very. I'm never betting against them again.
Whoa. I looked up the Raiders' schedule when you were discussing the game. This is the rest of their schedule, because you mentioned crazy playoff runs. So they have the Chargers this week. Then they're at LA, the Rams. They're at the Rams. Then they're home against the Patriots.
Winnable.
Then they're at the Steelers.
That's winnable.
They're home against the 49ers, and then they're home against the Chiefs. So they could pull off the next 4 games with victories, and then the Niners and the Chiefs would be the deciding factors if they make the playoffs.
Listen. So if I like I said, that if those last 2 games are the question marks, and assuming they win out, they'll be 8-7, right? Mm-hmm. Now, does 9 and 8 get them in the playoffs? That's the question. Because do I think they'll beat both of them? Absolutely not. But do they have a chance to split them, win one and lose one? Absolutely. They can split them. So the question is, does 9 wins get them in the playoffs? I guess only time will tell. Who knows? That'll be close,
I mean, I'm looking at the playoff picture right now. Obviously, we know, the Chiefs, the Bills, those are pretty much locked in for playoffs. But you know what? They're not that far down on the bubble, man. They're 12th. Jaguars, Colts, Patriots, and Chargers are above them, and then the Jets, the Bengals, and the Dolphins are the 3 wild card teams. So I mean, it's possible. So
Right.
we're gonna see. But we'll figure out. So, um, but I don't. It could happen. It could happen.
Like I said, I don't want to jinx the Raiders. If I jinx them, I would never bet on them again. But I got the Raiders winning this game 30-27. But this will be a good game. But who do you got win this game?
I got the Raiders as well, 28-24. All right. On to my favorite game, the game I probably want to watch the most this week. It's a rematch of the AFC Championship game last year. We have the 9-2 Chiefs off to face can't speak right now. Off to face the 7-4 Bengals. The Bengals they lost their first 2 games this year, but they've won 7 of the past 9. So they stumbled out of the gate, but they're picking it up as me and Will thought they would. Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, welcomed his second child on Monday, so congrats to the Mahomes family on that one. I don't know if you saw that, Will.
I did see that because the kid's a third. Like he's Patrick Le'Veon Mahomes a third. I did see that.
That's crazy. Can't wait for him to take over the league after I retire because he won't be in the league for another 21 years. So thankfully, but who knows? Maybe I'll play till I'm 46 or 42. Who knows? But anyways, he's been outstanding. He's got 3,585 passing yards. He's got 29 touchdowns. He's likely to win MVP this year if he continues this pace. For the Bengals, Jamar Chase is back, but it's unclear how much he will play. Like you said, only time will tell. The Bengals will need him if they want to go toe-to-toe with probably, in my opinion, the best offense in the league. My question for you here, Will, I asked this about the Eagles earlier, but the Chiefs, me and you've discussed how the Chiefs operate on offense. Or we'll just fuck around for a half, and then we'll actually start playing,
Right.
Are the Chiefs favorites to win the Super Bowl on the AFC side to make it to the Super Bowl? And is Patrick Mahomes favorite to win MVP if it continues the way he's been playing this year?
Oh, I think Mahomes is the MVP front runner without a question. I'm not even going to discuss that. You could have said Josh Allen, but Josh Allen had a little bit of a slump. So it has to be Patrick Mahomes. But with the AFC playoff picture, I don't think it's just the Chiefs. I think it's them and the Bills. If you want to say the Dolphins, too, as a dark horse, go right ahead. I think those are the unanimous top 3. Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs, in no order. I think the Bills and the Chiefs are definitely like a tier above, and then like in the next tier, it's the Dolphins. But I mean, it's either the Chiefs or the Bills.
No, I agree. I mean, I like you see me watch Chiefs games, and you know what I know is going on. Like, obviously, I play football, and I love the way the Chiefs play. They just their offenses. Andy Reid is such a brilliant coach, and it's absolutely crazy that it's crazy that he got Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. That literally fits perfectly right into their game plan. But who do you have winning this game here, Will?
Shane, quick little fun fact. The last time the Chiefs won in Cincinnati, 1986, I believe, in the 80s.
Wow, that's crazy.
Long time ago.
That's crazy.
Long time ago. So I'm going to have to say that, despite not having Jamar Chase, I still got to give it to the Bengals. I think it'll be a very close game. This is up there with the best games of the week. I think it's going to be the Bengals winning 34-31. It should be a great game, though, and this game's going to be fun to watch.
Listen, man, I support Joe Burr, but Patty Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they're going to fuck around first, second quarter. Then they're going to go off like they're the greatest duo ever because we might as well call them that. I have the Chiefs winning this game 35-28. But I think it's going to be a very entertaining game to watch. This is definitely my favorite game this week.
So let's go into the last one before the primetime games. Another good game. This is going to be a fun one. The Miami Dolphins, who are 8-3, versus the San Francisco 49ers, who are 7-4. The Dolphins have a top 3 offense, while the Niners have the best defense in football. This should be a great matchup, and it'll be very fun to watch. What team will lose? What team will crack? It'll be fun to watch, and it's going to be a good one. After the Dolphins traded for running back Jeff Wilson Jr., who was on the 49ers, their running attack has been getting a little better. It's not great, but it's getting better, which was the only bad thing about the Dolphins was their run game. The Dolphins will be without both starting tackles, Taron Armstead and Austin Jackson, I believe his name is. And the Niners just have Nick Bosa, who is a top 3 defensive end, and they're returning Eric Armstead. So Tua Tagovailoa will be under I apologize, will be under a lot of pressure this game, and he'll need to adjust to having 2 Pro Bowl defensive linemen against him. Quick little interesting tidbit: the student versus the master. Dolphins rookie head coach Mike McDaniel was coaching assistant for the 49ers the last 5 years before obviously becoming a Dolphins head coach. So let's see who wins. Is it going to be Kyle Shanahan or his student? Like I said, and that's another interesting little story going into this game. And lastly, Shane, both teams' quarterbacks have dealt with a lot of criticism. Jimmy Garoppolo, I won't even get into it. People have been calling him overrated or bad for years now. And then, Tua Tagovailoa, the fact that he was taken before Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, just to name a couple. Do you think both of these quarterbacks have shushed the haters this year with their play, or do you think they still deserve to be hated on?
I think Jimmy Garoppolo deserves to be hated on still, just because I feel like in order for a team to put complete trust in him, he needs to up his level of game just by one level. And then with Tua, this man's had, ever since he got knocked out against, I think the Bengals it was, he's had 12 touchdowns, no interceptions, I believe, and I think 1,000 something yards for passing. You can't hate on Tua anymore. I'm sorry, you can't. And if I find someone hating on Tua because he's a left-handed quarterback, I'm gonna slap the shit out you. You can't. You can't hate on this one. You can't hate on this man. He is him. Accept it. Just because he went
something that in the last 22 games.
Just because he went to Bama and he's a left-handed quarterback does not mean you can still hate him in the NFL. It's just because he's destroying your teams offensively with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you can't hate on him. He is good. Accept it.
And another thing I saw with the Dolphins in their last 24 games with Tua or something like that, where he started, they've been 20-2 or 22-2 or something like that. He's been on a roll. So, but for this game, I think that the 49ers have the edge here. It'll be a great game, though, a fun to watch. Not even from, the Niners defense versus the offense of the Dolphins. Obviously Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, that whole offense, Brandon Ayuk. It's going to be fun to watch. Great game. This whole schedule this week is just full of great football. This is a very anticipated week of football. But I got the 49ers winning this game in a close game, 24-20. What about you, Shane?
I'm riding Tua. I'm riding Tyreek Hill. I'm starting to become more of a fan of the 49ers the more I watch them. I'm starting to realize they do have potential to go deep into the playoffs. However, I do not think they can beat the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins overall are a better team. That may be a hot take for some people. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be 24-23 Dolphins.
So let's get into the Sunday night game, and then Shane will go over the last game, the Monday night football game of the year or the week. Also, Shane, I just got a notification that Georgia beat LSU 50-30.
I was just going to bring that up, boy. I have it in the background here. I'm actually looking at it as I'm doing the podcast. I have the sound off, obviously, and they're 50-30, baby. Bring on Garba. Put him in. We'll take them all down.
But anyway, so let's go into the last game of the Sunday games, and we'll go into the Monday night. Sunday night football, a very interesting matchup. Two random teams. The Colts, who are 4-7-1 against the Cowboys, who are 8-3. The Cowboys lead the league in sacks. Another old boy moment, Shane. Ready? They lead the league in sacks thanks to Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. While the Colts have a statue at quarterback, and they've allowed the most sacks this year.
Oh boy!
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh god!
Oh boy!
Not looking good. The Cowboys have done pretty well at shutting down elite running backs. It started with Dalvin Cook, then Saquon Barkley. Does the trend continue with Jonathan Taylor? I think it does. I think Jonathan Taylor is this whole team's offense, and I think Dalvin Cook and Saquon Barkley are both better than Jonathan Taylor. So if they can stop two guys that are better than Taylor, I think that will do just fine. Ever since Dak Prescott has come back from his broken thumb, the Cowboys have had one of the best offenses in the NFL, which does not get enough attention due to how good their defense is. I think when people talk about the Cowboys, which is something that really hasn't happened in our lifetime, we always talk about their offense. The Cowboys have a great offense, but a terrible defense. But this year, they have a great offense and a great defense. I apologize. A great defense and a good offense. Their offense is not really. I don't think it's elite in my opinion, but I do think it's pretty good. It's definitely like in the 10-ish range. So Shane, I got just a couple questions for you. If OBJ signs with Dallas, do you think the Cowboys are the NFC favorites to make the Super Bowl?
No, I don't. No. I don't think their offense really changes that much because you kind of like, I don't know. I feel like he wouldn't really make a big. I don't think he'd make that big of an impact with Mike McCarthy's type of offense. You know what I mean? With how Dak Prescott plays, I think there'd be a lot of too much ego on that offensive side of the ball that it just ruined. It'd make the offense worse, not better. So. I think they just need to continue what they're doing, and come playoff time, they just need to execute. And that's one thing the Cowboys, when they did make the playoffs, and those couple of years that in our lifetime, they just don't execute well in the playoffs. So I think that's really what they need to do the rest of the year.
Right. So now I know when we talk about elite receivers, Shane, we talk about the Stephon Diggs, the Tyreek Hill, the Justin Jefferson, the DeAndre Hopkins, etc. Do you think CeeDee Lamb is one of the most underrated receivers in football? I think he is, because CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, is not in that tier with Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson. I think he's a tier below, but I definitely think CeeDee Lamb is very underrated. Would you agree?
I think he's underrated, but I think some people just they don't see him because, like you said, their defense is like what's really, I wouldn't say carrying them, but it's the vocal point of this team, and it's just CeeDee Lamb. He hasn't really made the highlights this year like people thought he would. So I think that's the only reason why people are really calling him underrated. You know what I mean? So
right, but he's made a couple. He's made a couple insane catches, and I really feel like the Cowboys have a stud in him, and he's definitely very underrated. But he's a beast. But my last question for you, Shane, going to the Colts side of the ball. Very disappointing season for the Colts. So where do you think their future lies in the offseason? Like, where do you think this team goes in the next direction?
I think they better get some old linemen. They're going to have quarterbacks that are going to be hurting. I think they need to get a couple good linemen. I think they definitely need to make a decision at quarterback. Like Matt Ryan's.
I think you stop beating around the bush and draft one in the first round. Stop delaying it, just do it.
I agree. I definitely agree. There's going to be some pretty good quarterbacks coming up. So if you trade up, because I don't think they'll have a top 10 pick. I'm not sure exactly where the draft stocks are.
Most mocks have them have Will Levis or Levi's, whatever his name is, from Kentucky going to the Colts. So that's what most people think.
He's I've seen him play. He's pretty good. He's a very underrated quarterback when it comes to college play. He's kind of like kind of reminds me of Patrick Mahomes in college. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes because no one's going to be like Patrick Mahomes. No one's going to be Magic Mahomes. But he kind of gives me off that vibe, very underrated, chip on his shoulder type of quarterback. And he's going to come into the league. He's going to have something to prove. And I think if they get a good old line, get a couple good old offensive linemen, or maybe even draft a couple good offensive linemen, I think it's a good start for the Colts because let's be honest, they're pretty much in a rebuild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
they're also in a very tough spot, financial wise and player wise. They're in a tough situation because they were projected to win their division, and it's looking like that's not going to happen. So I got the Cowboys winning this game. I think the Cowboys are a very elite team. I think the Cowboys win this game 27-17. What about you, Shane?
I agree. I think the Cowboys are going to win 30-15 or 30-14. My bad. And I think, like I said, I think the Cowboys. I don't think they need to sign OBJ. I think another team could use better usage of him. Excuse me. and they just need to stay consistent because, we've seen it before where they've played good in the offseason and then they just suck in the playoffs. So we'll see how they go. But on to the Monday night game. I hate talking about the Buccaneers now because they're just not doing well. We have the Buccaneers who are 5-6 facing off against the Saints who are 4-8. Both teams have struggled really bad offensively this year. The Saints, they've had like 4 different quarterbacks start for them so far this year. The Bucs are only averaging 18.2 points a game. Their defense is what's making them win. Their defense is the key part of this team, as it has been the last couple of years. And everybody's kind of blaming Tom Brady. Well, it's not his fault. He's 4th in the league in the NFL for passing yards. Granted, he only has, I believe, 11 or 12 touchdowns, but he only has 2 interceptions. So it's not been Tom Brady's fault that this offense isn't going. To me, I think, and this is my question for you here, Will. To me, I think it's the offensive play calling. I think it's the head coach not calling the right plays. I think he needs to let Tom Brady be Tom Brady. Tom Brady is probably the smartest man in football. Who do you think is at fault for the Buccaneers' offensive and overall team struggles this year?
Oh, Todd Bowles was a head coach for the Jets. I'm sure you know that a couple of years ago, maybe 6 or so years ago. So he has a head coaching experience, and he wasn't very bad, or good, but he wasn't very bad. He was very mediocre. I believe the Jets were like 6 and from the 5-11 to 7-9 range with him. So, or 8-8. Like they weren't terrible, but they weren't very good. So he's more of a defensive-minded head coach too, I believe. So I think with the Buccaneers, going into training camp, they did have some injuries to their offensive linemen. I know Ryan Jensen, the center, is out for the season. Tristan Wirfs is out for the season. They lost Alex Kappa to the Cincinnati Bengals, and Ali Marpet retired. So they are injured on the offensive line, which isn't good for a guy like Tom Brady, who is obviously not mobile. So I really feel like the offensive line being injured is a factor, and the fact that Arians is no longer the head coach. But I think the main factor for the Bucs is their offensive line's injured, and their quarterback's not mobile.
I mean, I can say I agree with it, but I also don't think their offensive coordinator isn't like the greatest. So I think it's a mixture, like you said. Their offensive line, that's always been a key thing, especially with Brady. Ever since he got into his 40s, he needed to have a good offensive line in order to be successful. Just because of his age, you don't want him getting hurt, especially at 45 years old, 44, 45. And I also think it's a play calling. I think they're taking it away from Brady a little bit, which I think is a terrible idea. Tom Brady is a very smart human when it comes to football. I mean, when you've played football, more than 50% of your life, you're gonna know a thing or two about it. Let him make the plays. Let him, read the defense. Like there's no outside of the offensive line, there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be like a top 10 offense with Tom Brady as quarterback. And there's no reason why they should only have 5 wins. Yeah, 5-6. Right. Are you kidding me? There's got to be something going on here offensively, and it's not Tom Brady. Like you said, stats don't lie. Will, stats do not lie. He's only have 2 interceptions. Granted, his QBR rating is a little bit lower than usual, but he's 4th in passing yards. He's making the completions, and he's only got 2 interceptions. I think Aaron Rodgers has more interceptions than him, honestly. And
obviously, yeah.
we all know how accurate Aaron Rodgers is. So I don't know, but who do you? We haven't really talked about the Saints. Their offense, they're like we said, they've had QB issues all year, but their defense has been really good so far this year as well. So my question, or not my question, who do you think is going to win this game between the Bucs and the Saints?
I'm gonna say the Bucs, but I think we talked about him before. Chris Olave is a stud for the Saints. They struck gold when they got him, but they're in a tough spot too. But they're in cap hell, and they have QB issues, like you said. But Chris Olave will be a star in the NFL. His potential is through the roof. Easily the best rookie wide receiver this year. But I think the Bucs are going to win. I'll say the score will be 21-20. Their offense, or I'll say 20-17. I apologize, 20-17. These two teams have a fierce rivalry. Tom Brady never beat the Saints. as a Buccaneer until earlier this year. You know, the Saints kind of have his number. He's only beaten them twice out of like 7 or 8 matchups. So the Saints do have his number. So it's always a close game, though, when these two teams play. You know, it seems like I said, the Saints have something that just is anti-Tom Brady repellent, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've always, ever since Tom Brady started, like, obviously everybody should know this by now, I am a Buccaneers fan. No, I'm not a Tom Brady bandwagoner. Don't get me with that bullshit. I do feel a little more nervous when I face off against the Saints than I have like any other team, including Super Bowl. Like, I was way more nervous about facing the Saints in the playoffs than I was and like facing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like, they just know how to beat the Bucs lately. It's weird. But I do have the Bucs winning this game. I think it's going to be a little bit less scoring. I think it's going to be 24-14. Eventually this offense has to pick it up. Like this team is supposed to win their division, and they're 5-6. They are first in their division, but they're 5-6, and they're not going to go far in the playoffs unless Tom Brady, or like somebody gets this offensive going. Like somebody, it's got to happen. It's got to happen.
Right. And we'll see if it does, because the Bucs are 5-6, and luckily they're lucky that their division's so bad, because 5-6 in the other division, they're in trouble. So they're very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But that's going to conclude this week of the Gridiron Talk Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for next Saturday when me and Shane will record another episode of content for next week of football. Season's almost over, so don't forget to stay with us while we talk about the playoffs and all that good jazz. So, Shane, do you have anything else you want to say when we wrap up the outro?
No. I mean, look out for Spotify for the Ryder Rocket podcast. I'm going to be recording it at some point tomorrow with my friend Alexis Russo. She's a powerlifter. So any powerlifting people watching this right now that are really into fitness, definitely check that out. Probably drop it later in the evening. Wow. Go Dogs, obviously. College playoffs are right around the corner. That's going to be a big thing in the football community. And thank you for listening to mine and Will's preview on the NFL. I know he appreciates it. I appreciate it. It definitely helps both of us with what we want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family. If you guys want to see anything different, if you guys want us to talk about something in particular, drop some questions down below. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for listening, and stay tuned for next week. Peace out, guys.